Quit looking at me like that.
That was a terrible trailer.
Don't listen to him.
What are your thoughts?
I already have my tickets. It wasn't a good trailer, but that's a good thing.
Can you swim?
Yes.
Good, because you're in denial, bro. And we lost him.
Hello, my trigger happy friends. My name is Stevie Cade, and we have finally made it to the end of this Star Wars review series. Holy crap. I just got done reviewing every Star Wars movie in chronological order, no spin-offs, leading up to the release of Rise of Skywalker. But the time has come. The Rise of Skywalker is in theaters. I got to watch it this weekend, and I'm excited to share with you my spoiler-free and my spoiler thoughts on this. So we're gonna do two parts to this video. First half is going to be spoiler-free. Before I dive into spoilers, I'll let you know, I'll be very clear and blatant about it. If you don't want to watch my spoiler thoughts, that is your time to jump ship. But before we dive in, if you could be so kind and hit that subscribe button and the little bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. All right, guys, grab your keyboards, head down to the comment section, and let's review Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. My first reaction was very confusing. I felt a whole lot of emotions. I had a whole bunch of questions left unanswered. I was excited. I thought it was a visual spectacle. Felt like I was robbed on certain parts. The whole thing was a lot to absorb. With all that said, let's dive into what I do like about this movie. The score is fantastic. It's very much like the original trilogy. Now, I know John Williams has scored all of the Skywalker saga films. Much like the prequels, I thought The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I really thought they were kind of just lacking in the score area. I don't know, it just didn't really grab my attention. In this film, John Williams' score really brought out that nostalgia, and it really helped me dive into the story that they were trying to tell. And also, the effects were spectacular. For many points, I couldn't tell the difference between them using practical effects or CGI. That's what effects are supposed to do. You're not supposed to be like, okay, that's a puppet, that's CGI. No. In this movie, pretty much seamless. The use of Carrie Fisher as Leia, and honestly, I was expecting one quick scene of already shot footage that's going to be thrown in there and it's going to look obvious, and then they're going to kill her off. They didn't do that. They utilized her character quite a bit in this movie. The footage that they used really fit right into it. It didn't take me out of the moment with her. At times, it got a little creepy. Yeah, but that's all in here. That's not the screen part of it, that's just all me. And there were a couple parts where you could tell that that's not what its original intention was, but they're very minor. Overall, they utilized her character well, gave her a good send-off, made her a very pivotal character to the entire plot of the film. I thought they did great with that. And also, most of the second going into the third act and the third act itself, I thoroughly enjoyed in this movie. That's where I really kind of got attached to what was going on and found it to be more cohesive than the first act. That first act seemed to be more damage control, which we'll dive into that here in just a little bit. Darth Sidious. I loved every moment Darth Sidious was in this movie. He was noticeably more sinister, more menacing. He stole every scene that he was in. Maybe that's just me. I don't know what other people are thinking, because I try to avoid any spoilers like the plague, because I didn't get to see this until Sunday, late Sunday. So I don't know where people stand on this, but for me, Darth Sidious was a show stealer. I enjoyed the cinematography that surrounded him. It really immersed me into that moment. I felt how dark and evil he was in this.
At last, my boy, I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
They amped Darth Sidious up to 11. And speaking of the cinematography, this movie gave me exactly what I come to expect from a Star Wars movie made in modern times. Every scene's tone visually matched with the tone of the story that was happening at the moment, and I really appreciated that. But with that said, let's dive into what I'm on the fence about with this film. The entire story and plot devices collectively together, the whole thing comes across as just odd to me. I mean, I liked a lot of it, but I was also perplexed with a lot of it. Like, it was a weird balance. And as I said before, I was left with a lot of questions, but it also answered some pretty big questions very quickly and with a matter-of-fact type of dialogue. Key elements were just kind of brushed over just to get past it because we had to play catch-up from the first act of them doing damage control from The Last Jedi. That first act really was nothing more than that. It took up way more time with this film than it should have. And what I gathered from this is that this was a two-part story told into one movie, which then had to be pushed back to just most of the second act and then all of the third act because we had to play catch up and damage control. But overall, I did like the story. I would even say you can go without seeing The Last Jedi, but then Luke's storyline wouldn't make sense. So you have to have The Last Jedi. It has to be there because there's like one or two little points that carry on in this film that weren't explained in The Force Awakens. The cameos, what I can say that's spoiler free about them is I enjoyed the cameos collectively. I'm really glad we got to see some of these faces return, but some of them felt a bit forced. Oh, I bet you didn't know we had this guy. It was more for fan service, I guess is the word to look for. I don't really have a problem with fan service. I mean, I think Star Wars is a franchise based on nothing but fan service, but I think some of these cameos could have been taken care of with a little bit more finesse, but they weren't bad, and I did enjoy seeing the faces, so that's why we're on the fence. Jumping into what I don't like about this movie. Again, this is difficult to talk about because what I don't like is very spoilery, and we're not into the spoiler part of this review yet. And it's also as a result of damage control from The Last Jedi, so I can't fully blame this movie on some of my problems with it. But I can. Can I? Help. I will say this though. A lot of the development, story arcs, and evolution of characters, I feel weren't earned. And we're just expected to sit back and go, oh, okay, well, that's a new element of this character that we didn't know before. All right. Moving on, I guess. And Star Wars has a history of doing this. Like Luke Skywalker becoming a Jedi Knight suddenly in The Return of the Jedi, and Snoke's position as a Sith Lord. Many things that Star Wars has a tendency to rush us through. Unless you're the prequel trilogy, then we spend 3 movies learning how Palpatine rose as Emperor. They really honed in on that story. But for this film, you're closing out a saga that has taken place over the past 40 years. I would expect a more cohesive conclusion in the main character's story arc. I can't really go into more depth unless I start talking about spoilers, so we're gonna jump into spoilers here in just a moment. If you haven't watched the movie yet and you don't want to watch spoilers, but you still want to see what I rated this movie, go ahead and pause, jump to this time, and from there I'll give you my rating and my conclusion of the review without any spoilers. But from this moment until my grading, all spoilers. You have been warned. We never learned how Anakin's lightsaber was found. Everybody was wanting to know, how did they get that lightsaber? Last time we saw that lightsaber, it was attached to Luke's hand, flying through the clouds in Cloud City. What's below Cloud City? I mean, is this just a gas planet? How did they get this lightsaber? And they even say in The Force Awakens, oh, that's for another time, or whatever that one lady with the anus eyes said. That was definitely one of the questions I was very eager to find out. I thought it could even play into the story. But not. It did not. Alright, so let's talk about some of these characters. Leia. They were really hinting at her being strong with the Force in The Last Jedi as we see her use the Force to kind of get back to that ship, which was an odd scene, by the way, but we're not talking about that movie. But in this film, she's a straight up Jedi, I guess? I mean, she went through training with Luke, or so we're told. She's the one training Rey to be a Jedi. She built her own lightsaber, which we get right before the third act of this movie. She has a deep premonition of when, where, and who will use her lightsaber in the future. She almost seems like she's more powerful than Luke, which is awesome. Except we don't get to see any of it. It's all in backstory dialogue and not earned. We just have to accept that Leia's this badass Jedi that we never got to see, even though we've had over 40 years to tell this story. It's a bit disappointing. And again, I think maybe even a product of J.J. Abrams not being the storyteller for all 3 films. So let's move on to Rey. The delivery of Rey's heritage by Kylo Ren when he explained to her that she is Palpatine's granddaughter? That was sloppy. We've been waiting 3 movies to find out where Rey comes from, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you're Palpatine's granddaughter. And my mom knows too. Yeah, Princess Leia knew. Luke was the one who told Rey that Leia knew, so obviously Luke knew as well. Everybody knows, except Rey. They just rushed right through that entire fucking thing. It seemed like an afterthought almost. Like, okay, we gotta bring Darth Sidious back, but how do we connect it? Have we figured out Rey's past yet? No? Okay, well, she's related to Darth Sidious now. Cool. Moving on. But Palpatine also had her parents killed, so I guess he also killed one of his children. Her parents would obviously be either the son or the daughter of Palpatine. But they don't really dive into that. There's no, I even killed my own family to try to get you. I guess my point is that this whole thing was just glossed over very, very quickly. Could have been really cool if we had more time to spend on it, which seems to be a common theme in my review here. Kylo Ren. I'm a huge fan of Kylo Ren. Have been since The Force Awakens. I love his story arc. I love his development. To me, it's one of the most interesting story arcs in the entire trilogy, and I find his Freudian level of justification absolutely fascinating. But he dies randomly. Well, fairly randomly. I guess, the moral is, he sacrificed himself to save Rey, right? I just thought it was odd, especially after Rey kissed him. They had a moment. And now I think I know why they call it the Rise of Skywalker. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Swing, swing.
I was surprisingly happy to actually want them to get together. I'd never thought about them getting together. I always thought of them almost like they could be brother and sister type of thing, or family related. And then he dies. He dead now. I don't know. I guess I found his death to be anticlimactic. Both times it happened. When Sidious threw him down into the crevasse, and then when he showed back up, I'm like, oh yay, he forced himself back up. And then he just, he's just dead now. Anyway, that was odd to me. Odd choice. Finn, Poe, Rose, all of our back burner characters here, I've just put in my head, they don't really hold any real validity to the story. Finn, I thought was a missed opportunity, especially because I really liked his arc in The Force Awakens. And in this movie, they do give him some justification as he finds others like him. I did like that. But as the story progressed, again, I just kind of put those guys in the back burners as filler characters of this trilogy. But then, our buddy Lando Calrissian, he justified them for me. In that one scene where Poe found himself in the position of being general after Leia passed, wasn't sure of how to handle himself. He was very concerned about not knowing what to do. And then Lando just turns around and says, that's how we did it. Speaking about him, Luke, Leia, Han, they didn't know what they were doing. They were all just random people in this universe that were just going by the heels of their feet. And I thought that was a really cool connection. I was like, you know what? Okay, these back burner characters aren't so back burner. I did like that aspect of that little group of characters, probably even going forward in their own little spin-off, even, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that wouldn't technically be a Skywalker saga, so yeah, we'll see.
You ain't gonna Disney Plus me.
And that also justified Lando's cameo, and he led a lot of plot points from point A to point B. But speaking of the cameos, I already talked about Leia in my spoiler-free talk. Luke's cameo, I felt like his role had a bigger impact with a lot less screen time than it did in The Last Jedi. His purpose was fulfilled. He did what I would expect a Jedi who was passed to do. He helped Rey, guiding her through as Ghost Luke. And he also pulled the whole sitting down move that Obi-Wan Kenobi did.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
Which is odd to see a dead person, relax. But either way, that's not here nor there. I really liked his cameo in this film. I thought it worked really well. One cameo that I didn't really like was Han Solo. I will say this, I was completely surprised that he was in it. I was not expecting him to show up in this movie. And when I heard his voice, I was like, oh, they brought him back. And it was odd. It was very forced. That was totally into fan service play. I kind of felt Harrison Ford was phoning it in a little bit. It was lackluster. And it also seemed a little too familiar. Where have I seen a scene almost exactly like this? Batman v Superman. When Clark Kent talks to his dad on that mountaintop in the snow where he's stacking rocks for some weird reason. These two scenes are almost exactly alike, and they even have the same line.
I miss you, son.
That is in both of these movies. That can't be an accident. And as a matter of fact, there's quite a few copy and paste incidences that I found in this movie from other films that are not Star Wars films. For example, when Rey is on that skimmer thing heading out to the crashed Death Star,
Is your undoing.
it's like a perfect storm. Like the movie, A Perfect Storm, when they go up that giant wave at the climax of the film. Same exact shot. The camera angles and everything were just almost too similar for me. Like, it was the first thing I thought of when I saw that shot. And then there's the Goonies. The little coin they use leads them to the islands that takes them to the treasure or whatever. Very, very similar to when Rey had that knife and had to line up the grooves and the compass thing, and she had to line it up. And it was just, I thought she was looking for One Eye Willie's, lost treasure. Like, it was, again, very similar. I'm kind of being petty at this point. But hey, we're spoiler talking here, and this is what I thought when I saw this movie. I just have to share this stuff with you. Maybe you guys thought the same thing. Maybe I'm alone. Let me know in the comments below, please. Fan service. I do not mind fan service. As I said before, Star Wars is a franchise based on fan service. But if you don't like fan service, please help yourself to episode 1, 2, and 8. The post-war Death Star rubble. It was so cool to revisit that ship again, seeing it in like a post-apocalyptic type of setting. We got to see the Emperor's throne, and like I was just immediately brought back to the final battle of the Return of the Jedi, which was one of my favorite battles in the entire fucking franchise. Luke Skywalker lifting his X-Wing out of the water. We finally got to see him do it. I guess all that training with Yoda finally paid off. And then lightsabers. You get a lightsaber, you get a lightsaber, we all get lightsabers. Rey uses 3 lightsabers in this movie. 3 different lightsabers she yields in this movie. And then the ending of this movie, it was epic. It was so freaking good. It was good when they did it in Endgame, and it was good when they did it here. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you noticed, I'm sure you did. This was a very Avengers Endgame ending. The last minute on your left, or we're all here moment that they delivered in this movie. And again, that could not have been an accident. Just more of that copy and paste stuff that they did throughout this film. But it was different enough for me to enjoy it. Yeah, I noticed the parallel, but it didn't take me out of the moment. The actual final battle was visually stunning. There was a lot to lose, on the edge of my seat through this whole thing, and I thought it was executed very well. But then that's followed up by Rey being the Skywalker, but not the Skywalker, just the adoptive Skywalker. Well, my parents sacrificed themselves to save my life, so fuck them, I'm a Skywalker now. I get it. I understand the poeticness of it. I just thought it was cheap. We're going to make her the Skywalker because we're going to explain that she's not a Skywalker. Then we'll have the twist at the ending. Or maybe The Rise of Palpatine would be a little too confusing for the name of this movie. Could you imagine? Star Wars, The Rise of Palpatine, the end of a Skywalker saga. Honestly, I would probably pay to see that movie. I think I just did. Yeah, I did just pay to see that movie. I'm done. All right, that's enough of the spoiler talk. I'm going to go back to some spoiler-free discussion here as I reveal my grade for this film. Overall, this movie has a great story it really wanted to tell, but it suffered greatly from Disney's decision to want 3 different storytellers to tell one story. And thank goodness they brought Abrams back. But The Last Jedi, in the taint of these films there, that really threw a wrench into what Abrams' story could have been. And I really felt like this movie suffered from that. I'm actually teetering on the fence with my score here. My rating as of now, I'm giving this a C+/B-.
That was great!
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
Now, we live in the world where people either hate it or they love it. I'm going to stay right here in the middle and say this movie was okay. With that said, what did you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below, please. I will also be putting out my ranking of all 9 Star Wars films in the next day or two. Actually, I'm going to shoot it right after this one, so I'll be wearing the same outfit. So join me for that when it releases. Also, be sure to check out some more of my videos right here. And as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.